With two potential candidates now out of the GOP ring for 2012, that could have a major impact on the other Republican contenders, of course. Mitt Romney leading the pack in our latest Fox News poll. He is followed by Mike Huckabee, who now has announced that he will not run. And at the end of last month, Sarah Palin and Donald Trump were in a dead heat for third and fourth place, as you can see in that one. And now Donald Trump is out, so that changes that picture as well. So how does all this, what does all this mean to another gentleman who joins me now by phone, Texas Congressman Ron Paul, who has said he is in the running for the nomination himself. Congressman, welcome. Good to have you here today.
Hello, good to be with you.
Hi there. So now, Mike, since the last time you and I spoke, which was on Friday, Mike Huckabee is now out. Donald Trump is now out. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it looks like it's taking a while for this all to sort its way out. But, you know, with Governor Huckabee leaving, I think that really does, in many ways, you know, probably helps me because he's seen as being very conservative. And I think with Romney in the front, his biggest problem is that he's more moderate, you know, on the issues. So I would think the economic conservatives that supported the governor may well come my direction.
You know, but, you know, in terms of kind of your libertarian philosophy and the kind of things that you are, you know, sort of continuing to speak out very strongly about with regard to, you know, helping flood victims, for example, along the Mississippi River. And, you know, you also professed over the weekend that you think that the presidency is a very limited role and that a person doesn't have to be overly prepared for it because it shouldn't be as expansive perhaps as it is now. Weigh in on some of those for us.
Well, that is true. I have a lot of respect for the Constitution. I don't think presidents should be dictators. I don't think they should go to war without a declaration. Maybe we wouldn't be in so much trouble. I don't think we should be printing up money just because we need it. So I think it takes more courage to limit one's power than it is to use it and abuse it. So our presidents and the executive branch, just think of what the executive branch does. They assume the role of the legislative branch by running all the agencies and writing all these laws. I mean, that should never be tolerated and shouldn't be accepted. So I think the time is ripe for somebody to be in the executive branch and in charge and say, it's time to back off. It's time to shrink the size of government. It's time to turn this back to the states and time to turn this power and privileges back to the individuals and look at the important role of a president is to guarantee liberty for everybody and have equal justice before the law.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Iowa because Mike Huckabee was expected to do very well in Iowa. His socially conservative message is very strong there. You talked about him as a fiscal conservative. He also was one of the candidates or potential candidates who was very well known for his socially conservative stance on things. And that is sort of, in many ways, the antithesis of what you're about. And some people feel it might sort of help a Tim Pawlenty, for example, more in Iowa than it would help you.
Oh, I'd have to have a discussion with you on what I think I heard you say that I was the antithesis of social conservatism. That is a strange way of putting it.
Why is that wrong? Because you know, from everything that I've talked to you about and you know read that you have said in the past, you know, you want the government to be completely out of people's lives, and in some ways
that would be very socially conservative. I don't want the government in there telling people that they can't have homeschooling and private schooling, and I don't want them invading into any of their religious beliefs. I want the government to leave them alone. So that's very conservative. I believe that the purpose of government is to protect human life. So I'm very, very strongly pro-life, and so there's nothing that could possibly be the antithesis of social conservatism.
Is there any role? You know, we're all watching what's happening along the Mississippi River. Do you think that what is the role of government in that kind of situation? You know, as people desperately need help in terms of what's happening to their homes and their farms along there, is that maybe potentially the one area where federal government does have a role to provide some relief, some compassion, and some help?
Well, there is some role because the river runs between the states, but it should be done more voluntarily. But the whole concept of FEMA isn't a good principle because this overtaking of this whole concept means that building the levees and channeling the water, now they have this dilemma, which city are we going to flood? Are we going to flood the farmers or the city? We don't have any natural water flow. I mean, and think about how many problems that FEMA gave us after Katrina. FEMA is not very popular in my district, and I have 200 miles, close to 200 miles of coastline, and I keep getting reelected because people complain about FEMA coming in and not allowing them to get on their property and not allowing them to do things. FEMA is not, it's a typical bureaucracy, and it costs a lot of money, and we lived a long time without FEMA, but that doesn't mean there's zero involvement for the federal government, because there are some things that the federal government could be involved in, regarding river flow, but they are pretty inept. They don't have a very good record, and the people who have had to deal with them are very much on my side on that issue.
Who do you think, when you look at Iowa, for example, now in the early stages of the 2012 race, which you're in, who do you think gives you your toughest competition in the early stages of the race?
I haven't thought about that. I think the status quo is my toughest competition, and so many of the other candidates are pretty typical status quo, because they don't talk about monetary policy, they don't talk about foreign policy, they don't tell them exactly how they're going to cut and what they're going to do to resolve this economic crisis and how we will deal with the deficit. So that's pretty much status quo. So I would say that I'm the one that challenges the status quo and comes up with precise answers about what we do, and people love it when I say, well, we got into this mess because we didn't have a precise understanding of the Constitution, and if we did, we could solve a lot of our problems. So we were meant to be a republic. We were meant to have government that was separate from the big government, or at least most government we should be at the local level.
Right.
And this is very popular.
All right, Ron Paul, thank you very much. Good to have you weigh in on a day that has seen a lot of changes in the early stages of the GOP race. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Martha. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.